I'm going to keep this short and concise, but if you watch this video to the end, I guarantee you'll pick up some new tips that will serve you well in future projects. If you've ever had to edge glue several boards together to make a wider panel, you know how important clamping cauls can be to keep that panel flat while the pressure is applied and the glue dries. I do this all the time, and over the years I've picked up some tricks that make it a lot easier and more effective. The first method involves making custom cauls for the panel you're working on. You'll need 2 strips of wood that are about 3 inches in width, or slightly narrower if you're using hardwood. Lay your boards out the way you intend to glue them up, and mark the location of each seam in your panel right on the cauls. Use a 1-inch Forstner bit or hole saw to bore holes down the center of each at the points that you marked. Then rip each one into 2 pieces. You now have twice as many cauls as you started with. Here's how to use them. Put glue on the edges of your boards, and as you apply light clamping pressure, carefully align each seam at its center. Since your boards aren't likely to be perfectly flat, it can be difficult to align the entire seam from end to end. But if you get the center flush, you can use the cauls to deal with the ends. So clamp them on the ends of the boards with the cutouts over the seams. This will force everything into alignment and give you some space for the glue to squeeze out without getting on your cauls. Notice how we use rubber bands to help hold them in place while we apply the clamps. This makes it so much easier. You should try it. These types of end cauls are best for smaller panels, such as cabinet doors, but larger panels require more cauls to align the longer seams between the boards. And if the panel is wider than the throat of your clamp, it can be difficult to get enough pressure in the center to force the boards flush. The solution is to make a different type of caul. For this, I need a few strips of wood that are about 2 inches wide. Again, you can go narrower if you're using hardwood. I cut my cauls about 6 inches longer than the panel is wide, but I mark on the cauls where the edge of the panel will fall. Next, I put on a strip of blue tape for mark to mark. Then a second strip that starts and stops about 1 inch short of the ends of the first strip. Then a third that falls about 1 inch short of the ends of the previous one, and so on until I end up with a final piece that's just a few inches wide at the center. The tape has now modified the edge, which created an arc, so the caul is gradually thicker toward the center. Now, as it naturally bends to the pressure of the clamps on the ends, you'll maintain pressure in the center of the panel as well. This process works well for medium-sized panels, such as for small tables or cabinet tops. But if you're gluing up a really wide panel, such as a countertop or a full-size dining table, you'll need to apply this curved edge principle a little differently. For one thing, you'll need thicker cauls, perhaps even 2x4s, and you'll need more of an arc in the edge as well. It's not practical to create a more dramatic arc with tape, because too many layers of tape will just make it too spongy to apply even pressure. Instead, you'll have to cut the arc on the edge of the caul itself. A good way to do this is to rip an 1/8 inch strip from a knot-free edge. Drive a small nail close to each end, about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch back from the edge that you wish to curve, depending on how long the caul is, because longer cauls will require a more substantial curve than a shorter one would. The nails will help you hold the ends of your strip as you bend it back toward the edge, creating a template for you to trace a nice gradual arc. Finally, you can use a bandsaw or a jigsaw or even a belt sander to form the edge of your line. It doesn't have to be perfect, just get it the best you can. Since these curved cauls lack cutouts over the panel seams, you might want to apply some clear packaging tape to the edge of the caul or some paste wax so that it won't stick to the glue. Cauls make glue-ups a lot easier and your panels will come out flatter. You can make them yourself with some of those scraps you've been hoarding, and you can save them to reuse many times. Now here's something else that's really clever. It's just a couple of cuts. Your ears will be fine, right? They will be if you have your IsoTunes Bluetooth earbuds in, because you'd already have your ANSI certified hearing protection on because you're listening to your favorite music and podcasts. And you're supporting a small family business at the same time. Please use the link below this video to learn more and to show them you support what we do as well.